The aliens laughed at Earth's champion. Then he unleashed his power. The unassuming champion, the celestial conclave station orbiting Epsilon Eridani, was designed to overwhelm. Its spiraling crystalline structures captured and refracted starlight in dazzling arrays, while gravity-defying architecture stretched impossibly across the void. Diplomats and representatives from 1,000 worlds strolled through corridors where rare atmospheric compounds mingled to create perpetual auroras overhead. It was meant to inspire awe, and it did, to everyone except Commander Nora Reeves. She stood near the entrance of the Grand Assembly Chamber, nursing a cup of synthetic coffee that tasted faintly of motor oil and disappointment. Her standard Earth defense uniform, a practical dark blue jumpsuit with minimal insignia, looked embarrassingly plain among the bioluminescent robes and hollow-embedded ceremonial armor of the other delegates. Is that really Earth's guardian? The question floated from a cluster of delegates nearby. The speaker, a towering Xandorian with iridescent scales and ornate battle implants, made no effort to lower his voice. Laughter rippled through the group. Some chuckled politely, others clicked mandibles or vibrated gill slits in their species' equivalent of amusement. I heard their ship still use combustion propulsion, whispered another, a gelatinous being whose translucent body pulsed with what appeared to be circuitry. Nora sipped her coffee, grimaced, and continued scanning the room. She'd been warned about the reception. Earth was the newest addition to the conclave, admitted more out of pity than respect. Humanity had barely mastered interstellar travel. Their weapon systems were considered primitive, and their understanding of xenobiology was still in its infancy. Commander Reeves? A melodic voice cut through her thoughts. She turned to find a tall, slender figure approaching. Ambassador Thralex of Liridian stood nearly 7 feet tall, with skin that shimmered like polished obsidian. Bioluminescent patterns flowed across his face, highlighting angular features and eyes that resembled twin galaxies, swirling vortices of stars against an inky backdrop. Ambassador? Nora nodded respectfully. I trust you're finding our facilities adequate. Thralex's voice carried the distinctive harmonic undertones of his species. Each word seemed to contain multiple meanings, layers of communication humans couldn't fully perceive. It's all very impressive, Nora replied, gesturing with her coffee cup. Though I'd trade some of the grandeur for a decent cup of coffee. Thralex's expression shifted, luminescent patterns rearranging in what might have been confusion or amusement. You find humor in your position? I find humor everywhere, Ambassador. It's a human specialty. Before Thralex could respond, the chamber's ambient light dimmed. Holographic displays materialized throughout the room, drawing delegates to their assigned seats. Thralex gave Nora a curious look before gliding toward the upper tiers. Nora remained standing near the back wall. She hadn't been assigned a seat, another subtle reminder of Earth's status. The conclave elder, an ancient meridian with translucent skin through which complex organs glowed and shifted, hovered to the central platform. Its voice resonated directly into the minds of all present, translated into each species' native language. Esteemed delegates, we face a grave threat. The chamber quieted. Holographic displays shifted to show a region of space at the edge of conclave territory. A darkness moved there, not the natural void of space, but something that seemed to consume light itself. The entity known as the Void Leviathan has returned. A collective murmur of fear rippled through the assembly. Nora straightened, suddenly alert. It has already consumed the uninhabited Tarsius system. Long-range sensors indicate it is moving toward populated regions. Images appeared, a massive shape, difficult to comprehend, stretching across space like an oil spill across water. Where it passed, stars dimmed and died. We must respond immediately. The Defense Council proposes deploying the combined fleet to intercept and contain the entity before it reaches inhabited systems. Debate erupted. Species with territories near the entity's path demanded immediate action. Others questioned whether conventional weapons would have any effect against something that consumed light and energy. Throughout the chaos, Nora remained still, studying the projections with narrowed eyes. Finally, she stepped forward. I'll go. Satha. Words weren't loud, but they cut through the noise like a blade. Silence fell gradually as delegates turned to stare at the human. The Elder's attention shifted to her. "Commander Reeves? I'll investigate. Get close enough to assess what we're dealing with." Fresh laughter erupted, less restrained than before. "You?" A Zentarian admiral with cybernetic enhancements covering half his face gestured dismissively. "In what? Your species barely manages controlled fusion. Your vessels would disintegrate before getting within sensor range." Nora shrugged. "My ship is docked and ready. I can depart within the hour." "Alone?" the Elder asked, multiple eyes blinking in sequence. "That's how I work best." Thralex moved to the edge of his platform. "This is absurd. The Void Leviathan is not some minor anomaly. It has destroyed entire civilizations in past cycles." "All. The more reason to understand what we're facing before sending in a fleet," Nora replied. "Sometimes a scalpel works better than a hammer." "And you believe yourself to be this scalpel?" Thralex's voice carried a note of disbelief. Nora met his gaze steadily. "I believe I'm expendable enough to take the risk, yet skilled enough to possibly succeed." The Elder considered, its internal organs pulsing with deliberation. "The human's logic has merit. A small reconnaissance mission could provide valuable intelligence." "Then I volunteer to accompany Commander Reeves," Thralex announced unexpectedly. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. A Lyridian ambassador, especially one of Thralex's status, volunteering for what was essentially a suicide mission alongside a human. Nora raised an eyebrow. "You sure about that, Ambassador? My ship lacks certain amenities you might be accustomed to." "I am trained in xenobiology and advanced physics. My knowledge may prove useful," Thralex replied smoothly. "And I admit to curiosity about humanity's approach to this threat." The Elder nodded. The matter decided. "Proceed then. But understand the gravity of your mission. If the Void Leviathan cannot be reasoned with or deterred, you must return with information that will help the combined fleet neutralize it." Nora drained the last of her coffee. "Understood." As the assembly dispersed to prepare defensive measures, Thralex approached Nora again. "I hope you realize what you volunteered for, Commander." "Probably not," Nora admitted with a half-smile. "But that's never stopped me before." Docking Bay 17 housed the smallest vessels on the station: messenger ships, personal shuttles, and maintenance craft. Among them, Nora's ship stood out like a sore thumb. "This is your vessel?" Thralex stared at the spacecraft before them. The Tarnished Arrow was unremarkable in every way. A standard Earth Defense long-range scout ship, about 60 meters from bow to stern, with visible weld marks along its hull and retrofitted engines that didn't quite match the original design. No decorative elements, no sleek lines, just functional components arranged with brutal efficiency. "Home sweet home," Nora said, pressing her palm against the entry scanner. The airlock cycled open with a wheezing hiss. "It appears functional," Thralex offered diplomatically. "She's not pretty, but she's reliable." Nora gestured for him to enter. "Watch your head." The interior was equally utilitarian. Cramped corridors, exposed conduits, and a cockpit barely large enough for two. Screens and manual controls dominated the space. A stark contrast to the neural interfaces and holographic systems common on conclave vessels. Thralex folded his long frame into the co-pilot's seat, luminescent patterns shifting rapidly across, his skin in what Nora had begun to recognize as distress. "Systems online," Nora announced, flipping switches and pressing buttons in a practiced sequence. "Reactor stable, navigation configured, we're good to go." "No pre-flight checks? No system diagnostics?" Thralex asked incredulously. "Already did them while you were packing." Nora tapped a small display. Arrow might look simple, but she's smarter than she lets on. The comm system crackled. "Unscheduled departure detected in Bay 17. Please confirm authorization." Nora leaned toward the speaker. "Control, this is Commander Reeves on Tarnished Arrow. Departing under Conclave Elder authorization, mission designation, Void Reconnaissance." A pause. "Confirmed, Commander. Departure path cleared." May fortune favor your journey. The docking clamps released with a thunk that reverberated through the hull. Nora's fingers danced across the controls, and the arrow pulled away from the station with surprising grace. Ambassador, Nora said as they accelerated toward the jump point. I should warn you, this mission is likely to get strange. If you're having second thoughts, I can turn around. Threlex's galaxy-like eyes studied her. You truly believe you can approach the void Leviathan and survive? Nora programmed the jump coordinates, her expression neutral. I believe I can get closer than most and maybe learn something useful in the process. And if it attacks? A small smile played at the corner of her mouth. Then we improvise. The tarnished arrow reached the jump point, its engines glowing brightly against the backdrop of stars. In a flash of displaced space-time, they vanished, heading toward the growing darkness at the edge of charted space. Behind them, the celestial conclave continued its frantic preparations for war, while the unlikeliest of explorers raced toward the unknown. A simple human and a skeptical Lyridian, in a ship that looked like it belonged in a scrapyard rather than the front lines of cosmic defense. What the conclave didn't know, what no one beyond Earth's highest echelons knew, was that neither Nora Reeves nor her ship were exactly what they appeared to be. What lurks beneath the tarnished arrow cut through the darkness of uncharted space, its engines humming with an efficiency that belied their battered appearance. They had been traveling for nearly 3 days, crossing through jump points that grew increasingly unstable as they approached the region where the void Leviathan had been detected. Inside the cramped cockpit, Ambassador Threlex observed Commander Nora Reeves with growing curiosity. The human woman maintained a relaxed posture as she guided the ship, occasionally humming fragments of melodies unknown to him. Despite the gravity of their mission, she appeared completely at ease. We're approaching the edge of the Nephilim belt, Nora announced, checking readings on a display that flickered intermittently. Last confirmed sighting of our target was just beyond the asteroid field. I'm detecting unusual energy signatures, Threlex said, studying his console. Nothing that matches known phenomena. Nora nodded. That's our friend. The void Leviathan warps reality around itself, like space is trying to get out of its way. Threlex's bioluminescent patterns shifted to a deep indigo, a sign of concern among his species. Commander, I've been meaning to ask, how exactly does Earth plan to defend against such an entity? Your planet's technological development is limited. A smile played at the corner of Nora's mouth. Is it? The Conclave's assessment of humanity indicates. The Conclave sees what we want them to see, Nora interrupted, flipping a series of switches above her head. Just like I let them see what they expected at the station, an outmatched human in over her head. Threlex stared at her, luminescence pulsing rapidly across his obsidian skin. You've been deceiving the Conclave? Not deceiving. Just managing. Expectations. Nora's fingers danced across the control panel and suddenly the ship's interior lighting shifted. Hidden panels throughout the cockpit illuminated, revealing advanced systems that had been concealed behind what now appeared to be carefully crafted facades. What is this? Threlex rose from his seat, towering in the confined space. This, Nora said, gesturing to the transformed cockpit, is the real tarnished arrow, and I'm the real Commander Reeves. She tapped a sequence on what had appeared to be a mundane display. A holographic projection materialized between them. Technical specifications of the vessel, revealing propulsion systems and defensive capabilities far beyond what Earth was thought to possess. Humanity learned early on that appearing weak can be advantageous, Nora explained, eyes fixed on the projection. When we first detected signals from the Conclave a century ago, we realized how outmatched we would be if we simply announced ourselves. So you feigned technological inferiority? We presented an accurate picture of our public technology. What you're seeing now is from our shadow programs. Nora gestured to the ship around them. The Arrow isn't unique. Earth maintains a fleet of vessels like this, advanced scouts designed to operate beyond Conclave awareness. Before Threlex could respond, an alarm sounded, a low, resonant tone that seemed to vibrate through the hull. We've been noticed, Nora said calmly, dismissing the hologram. Proximity alert. Our target is changing course, heading toward us. The view screen shifted to show the space ahead. At first, Threlek saw nothing unusual, just the endless void spotted with distant stars. Then he noticed it. Areas where the stars simply weren't. Not blocked, not dimmed, but absent, as if that section of reality had been erased. The void Leviathan, he whispered. Nora nodded, her expression hardening. It's bigger than the report suggested. The entity moved like liquid darkness, flowing rather than traveling, consuming light and matter alike. As they watched, a small asteroid drifted into its path and simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no disintegration, just a silent transition from being to nothingness. Commander, we should retreat and report. Not yet, Nora replied, guiding the ship closer. We need to understand what we're dealing with. The darkness expanded, tendrils of void reaching out like curious fingers. The ship's sensors screamed warnings as one such tendril approached them. Evasive maneuvers, Threlek cried. But Nora remained still, watching the approaching darkness with analytical calm. It's trying to communicate, she said quietly. The tendril touched the hull and instantly a pressure filled the cockpit. Not physical, but mental. Threlek gasped as foreign thoughts invaded his consciousness. Concepts without words, emotions without context. It's scanning us, Nora ground out, her jaw clenched against the intrusion. Trying to understand what we are. Small beings. Fragile vessels. Why approach? Why resist consumption? The words weren't spoken but felt, impressed directly upon their minds like brands on soft tissue. Threlek struggled to form coherent thoughts against the overwhelming presence. We seek understanding. He managed to project. We represent many worlds, worlds meaningless. All returns to void, all feeds the hunger. Nora's breathing had become labored, sweat beading on her forehead as she fought the psychic invasion. Why consume? She asked aloud, focusing her thoughts. What purpose does destruction serve? Purpose is existence. Consumption is nature, your comprehension irrelevant. The mental pressure intensified. Threlek felt his consciousness beginning to fragment, memories and thoughts scattered like leaves in a storm. Beside him, Nora hunched forward, fingers digging into the armrests of her chair. Commander, Threlek gasped. We cannot withstand this assault much longer. I know, she replied through gritted teeth. Time for Plan B. With trembling fingers, Nora reached for a compartment beneath her console and retrieved what appeared to be a neural injector. Before Threlek could question her, she pressed it against her neck. There was a soft hiss, followed by a momentary stillness. Then Nora's eyes snapped open, blazing with an inner light that hadn't been there before. Lines of blue energy spread from the injection site, tracing patterns beneath her skin like electronic circuitry. What have you done? Threlek whispered. Woken up, she replied, her voice overlaid with a harmonic resonance similar to his own species. She stood, the blue patterns intensifying, spreading across her face and down her arms. When she spoke again, it was directly to the entity invading, their minds. You hunger. We understand hunger. But this space is claimed. These worlds are under protection. The pressure in the cockpit wavered, the entity's attention shifting fully to Nora. Protection meaningless. All consumed in time. Not by you. Not here. Nora raised her hands, and the blue patterns flared brilliantly. Threlek watched in astonishment as she projected something back at the entity, not just thoughts but energy structured and focused. The ship's systems responded to her, power flowing from reserves he hadn't known existed. Outside, the darkness recoiled, pulling away from the hull like a wounded animal. What are you? We are humanity. We walked through fire to reach the stars. We survived our own destruction a dozen times. We know darkness intimately. Nora's enhanced voice resonated through the ship, through space itself, carried on waves of energy that Thralex could perceive but not comprehend. You are welcome to the void between stars, but the worlds themselves are ours to protect. Feed elsewhere, or face extinction. A tremor ran through the entity, something like confusion, perhaps even fear. The tendrils withdrew further, the pressure in their minds easing. Strange beings. Will consider. Will watch. Will decide. The darkness began to retreat, flowing away from their position, back toward the depths of uncharted space. Nora remained, standing until the entity was beyond sensor range, the blue energy pulsing beneath her skin gradually subsiding. Finally, she collapsed back into her chair, breathing heavily. Commander? Thralex approached cautiously. What are you? Nora looked up at him, a tired smile on her face as the last traces of blue faded from her eyes. Just human, Ambassador, but not quite the humans you thought you knew. She gestured weakly toward the nav console. Set a course back to the Conclave. We have a report to deliver. The Grand Assembly chamber fell silent as Nora completed her briefing. The holographic displays showed the Void Leviathan retreating from Conclave space, heading toward the empty region beyond the Galactic arm. So you communicated with it? The Elder asked, multiple eyes blinking in sequence. In a manner of speaking, Nora replied. She stood at the center of the chamber now, no longer relegated to the back wall. It's a sentient entity that feeds on energy. I convinced it that the cost of feeding here would be too high. Murmurs spread through the assembly. The Zentarian admiral who had mocked her previously leaned forward. And how exactly did a human accomplish this? Ambassador Thralex stepped forward from his position among the Lyridian delegation. I witnessed it, he announced, his voice carrying throughout the chamber. Commander Reeves utilized technology unknown to the Conclave, neural enhancements, that allowed her to project a counterforce against the entity's psychic intrusion. Impossible! Someone shouted. Humans have no such capabilities. The humans you thought you knew don't, Thralex replied. His luminescent patterns formed, complex sequences as he addressed the assembly. But there is more to Earth than we have been permitted to see. All eyes turned to Nora, who stood calmly under their scrutiny. Is this true? The Elder demanded. Has Earth concealed its true technological development from the Conclave? Nora met the Elder's gaze steadily. Earth has protected itself as any emerging civilization would when faced with vastly superior powers. We revealed what was safe to reveal. We concealed what needed protection. Your deception violates Conclave protocols, the Zentarian admiral accused. Protocol is a luxury of the established, Nora countered. Survival is the necessity of the newcomer. The Elder floated closer. What else has Earth concealed? That's classified, Nora said with a slight smile. But I can tell you this. Humanity has faced extinction multiple times on our own world. We've fought ourselves, our environment, our own creations. Each time, we adapted. Each time, we emerged stronger. She gestured to the displays showing the retreating Void Leviathan. We understand existential threats better than most. We respect them. Sometimes we become them, if necessary. A hush fell over the assembly as her words sank in. The Void Leviathan didn't retreat because it feared our weapons, she continued. It retreated because it recognized something familiar in us. A survival instinct just as powerful as its hunger. It's considering whether the meal is worth the fight. The Elder considered this, its internal organs pulsing with deliberation. The Conclave must reassess its understanding of Earth. It finally announced. Ambassador Thralex, you will work with Commander Reeves to establish a new framework for human integration into our collective. Thralex bowed slightly, galaxy eyes fixed on Nora. It will be my honor. As the assembly dispersed, delegates approached, Nora with new respect and caution in their manner. The laughter that had greeted her arrival was conspicuously absent. You've changed everything, Thralex said quietly as they walked toward the observation deck. The Conclave will never view humans the same way again. Nora gazed out at the stars, at the countless worlds spinning in the darkness. That was always the plan, Ambassador. Humanity needed a seat at the table. And now you have it, Thralex observed. Though I suspect some will sleep less soundly, knowing what lurks beneath humanity's unassuming exterior. Nora smiled, a brief flicker of blue dancing behind her eyes. As they should, Ambassador, as they should. Across the void, beyond the reach of Conclave sensors, the entity known as the Void Leviathan drifted, contemplating the strange beings it had encountered. For the first time in eons, it had met something that understood the nature of hunger, of survival, something that had walked through its own void and emerged transformed. Something worth watching, something perhaps worth avoiding. For now,